Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, back at it again with another set of D&D stories. Today, we've got DMs of r/MrRipper. What is the worst mistake you've made in a campaign? Part 1. I'll go first. I was DMing a pre-written campaign and the player had encountered a shifty merchant who offers them some rather dubious potions of healing. The druid gets curious and decides to buy one. Later in a dungeon, most of the party is unconscious, knocked down to 0 hit points. We were playing a level 1 campaign, so these things happen. The druid was low on spell slots and decided to try out the potions. I hadn't expected them to actually use the potion, but I thought it might be interesting to give them a small heal and a random magical effect. I decided to roll on the magic mushroom table from Tasha's cauldron for lulz. Big mistake. The druid split the potion between the 2 other unconscious party members and the wounded brass dragon wormling they found. First roll, the bard gets the effect of a mind read spell, reads the dreams of their sleeping goblin companion. Second roll, warlock gets the ability to speak and understand all languages. Okay, sure, fine. Third roll, the wormling instantly casts time stop. Holy shit. I spent 10 whole minutes laughing my ass off while my player just screamed. I made the wormling just fuck with them during stop time, but that mistake will haunt me forever. Moral? Always look closely at the table you're about to roll on. TLDR, I roll on an OP magic mushroom table without looking at it and give a first level party the ability to read all languages for 4 days and a dragon wormling the ability to stop time. What are some of your worst mistakes as DMs? Roll for dick size. Basically, in my first campaign, my players were my friends, and a few mutual friends who I didn't know very well. We were pretty immature teenage boys, and I allowed them to roll for the size of their characters' dicks at the beginning of the campaign. Little did I know the phrase, roll for dick size, created a chain of events that would end up destroying this campaign, as well as some real-life friendships. I made a one-shot, a basic who did this murder, and added one extra detail about the victim, a tattoo that represented something just because I could. I had to improvise a whole damn session because of it. Never again I'm gonna say more if I can say less. Here's a few I've made. So, it's my first time DMing, running my first campaign, based mostly on and in the world of Skyrim with a lot of homebrew/reskinning monsters and items. Between the challenge of merging D&D with Skyrim, mostly without using others' unofficial stat sets, and being a first timer at DMing, I've made the mistakes of giving my players a little too much leeway, having them fight creatures way above their combat rating, and allowing them to get away with stuff for flavor that could otherwise break the game. Let's start with the leeway problem. One of my players, the ex-former DM at our table, made a Warforged Dwemer sphere. I gave him the ability to upgrade his armor, since spheres are mostly metal, as well as weapon improvements. His current state is Dragonbone, dual crossbow wielding with an AC of at least 19. For flavor, it works out, but his character alone makes planning combat encounters a chore, since the rest of the party is a lot squishier. He downed a copper dragon wormling in the matter of a few turns. This kinda goes with my other big problem, overpowering the encounters. Being Skyrim based, there's gonna be dragons, right? I'm trying super hard not to party wipe them all, but also give a good fight. The first fight against an adult red dragon on the road resulted in half the party being knocked out. The most recent encounter with a dragon was much better, but I have to nerf the fire breath attacks quite a bit. Now, the third thing. Rare, but has come close to breaking the game, or at least future encounters or quests. We used to have a player that played a chaotic Dremora tiefling bard. On the road, the party met Cicero and the Mother, where the wagon had broken down. Anybody who's played Skyrim knows he is important to the Dark Brotherhood questline. Well, this player made 2 mistakes. 1, trying to open the Mother's casket, and number 2, threatening Cicero with an attack. I had to tell her out of game to stop. She was the kind of player who'd do dumb stuff in-game just to piss off the DM or be a murder hobo. She has since moved away though, and I'm considering using her character as an antagonist later on. We were in a 5th edition campaign with a druid, wizard, monk, paladin, and rogue, me. I had made a contact through the Thieves Guild in a major city. The leader of the Thieves Guild informed me that he had an investment in a mining operation in a small village a couple days' travel away. He said that he had several complaints about the workers being unruly and not wanting to work under their current conditions. We were given the task of going and investigating the mining town to fix the problem. We show up to the mining town and see how bad the conditions are there and decide we will help fix the problem. Okay, it turns out that the problem stems from the royal family, who owns the mine not caring about working conditions as long as they get the ores, precious metals, etc. from the mine. So, our party's conclusion was to overthrow the royal guards and pit bosses at the mine and allow the workers to be in charge of the mine instead. I informed my contact in the Thieves Guild that we were fixing the problem by removing the people responsible for the poor working conditions, and that if he was interested, he could probably claim a much larger stake in the mining company afterwards. It turns out, when my contact said fix the problem, he meant go and get the workers lying down so they'll do whatever they're told. So instead of thanking me for creating a better work environment, my contact hired a group of mercenaries to come kill us and retake the mining town. Ultimately, it didn't go well for the mercenaries, and we freed the town. Our party now operates out of the tiny mining town of Govan's Well, where we have a mansion that was abandoned by the royal family and a bar that I own. It is now the crown jewel of the trade union and is run completely by the union of workers who fought off the royals and mercenaries to win back their rights. Not the DM, but participated in a campaign that ended horribly. Campaign boiled down to getting from A to B, but in a very convoluted pathway. DM eventually got annoyed that the party was really good at thwarting the puzzles, enemies, and mini-bosses. Most of the party had plenty of experience from RPG video games and fantasy books/movies thrown at us. Hence, DM changed a lot of the core mechanics of fights within one session. For example, magic users required a lot of gold to cast spells. None of the spellcasters had any gold. Martial classes had difficulty hitting a lot of the monsters because of new resistances introduced, altered item properties, weapons developing new curses while using them, etc. Whole party flipped at all the changes in one session and then walked out of the game. DM was removed from the game store soon after because the amount of swearing they did after we left the game. TLDR. DM got pissed at players for being too good at the game, so changed all the rules within one session. Whole party walked out and DM flipped. DM got removed from the game store. So I had my player take on a quest to kill a mage by the name of Ruddy in a dungeon. On the way, a new player joined up and they went in. The dungeon was fine at first, having a manageable but challenging encounter. Then it went downhill. I immediately realized this when a player who was level 5 soloed a mimic. The rest of the dungeon was too easy for that session. I blame the lack of Fey monsters. I had 2 weeks to prepare and replan the encounters to be less thematic and more tough, but then they got to Ruddy. I used the Feylock stat block from Volo's guide for him and had him have 2 displacer beasts to go up front. One round, Ruddy is gone, and it's just the displacers who managed to nearly down 2 party members and could easily make a beeline to the druid and one-shot her. Afterwards, I felt like I had to fuck over my players to make them feel challenged. The party are now about to fight an order of knights who could easily take them down if they don't play their cards right. Not the DM, but in my first D&D campaign, my dad was the DM and we were using the old 2nd edition books he's kept from his youth. Early on, Dad decided to give us a homebrew item, though we didn't realize that it was homebrew at the time. The Potion of Permanency, one for each character. If you drank it, any magical effects currently active on you become permanent. If, for example, you were under the effects of gaseous form, you were stuck as a living cloud. There is also a percentage chance that you just die, but luckily nobody rolled that result. Since I was a paladin and thus the party tank, I opted for Uncle Balam, the level 20 wizard/character DMPC, purely there to handhold us noobs, to cast the Stone Skin spell on me, which in that edition made you immune to all non-magical damage for the duration. And now, I had this effect on me permanently. Stabbed by a goblin? Nope. Boulder thrown from a giant? Nope. Attacked by a room full of 50 orcs? Nope. dropped from orbit, not a scratch. The only way I could be hurt was from either spells or magical items. Also worth noting is that to generate these characters, we rolled 8d6 and picked the highest 3 dice. I managed to roll a 6 for this guy, which at the advice of my dad, I reluctantly put in intelligence, thus Garrett the invincible idiot. In fact, when we later found a ring of 3 wishes, my wish, to the objection of everyone else at my table, was simply to double my intelligence so that I, the player, could stop role-playing an idiot. There wasn't any such thing as ASI back then. Barring magical items, you were stuck with whatever stats you rolled at character generation. Also in that campaign, my dad gave us a joke item, the Ring of Horribly Flatulent Misrepresentation. All it did was make the target rip ass, but it was always the loudest, longest, and wettest fart of the creature's life. You basically just caused the target to empty its entire digestive tract in one turn. The best part was that the way he described the farts. You hear a sound like a hurricane going through a tuba with chunks, or you hear a sound like a silverback gorilla with a sore throat being fed into a wood chipper. Or you hear a sound like a megaton of TNT going off at the bottom of a lake of pudding. Why was this a mistake? Because whenever we managed to sneak up on a group of enemies, we'd always pair it with the stinking cloud spell, so that whoever we targeted with the MrRipper ring would get mauled by everyone else in the room for having the audacity to do that to them. Later in that campaign, we split the Tarrasque into 3 pieces, let them regenerate into 3 separate creatures, and teleported them to the 9 Hells, the Abyss, and the Underdark. We forgot to cover our tracks, however, so we were eventually pulled into the 9 Hells so that Asmodeus could in person gloat to us that Tiamat just ate the thing. And then he gave us an offer we couldn't refuse. I don't remember why we never heard from Demogorgon, but the Underdark Tarrasque turned up in a later campaign, frozen in magic crystal. Now this is where my dad's 3rd big mistake came in. To save our hides, he had Balam put a wall of force on us and then use retributive strike, which was much more powerful back then. When we all came to, Asmodeus was knocked out and there was an escape portal. I can't remember where it came from. We were of course meant to go through that portal, but I decided to chop Asmodeus' head off first while he was sleeping. Do my best Super Saiyan impression from the flood of XP I got, then I went through the portal. Asmodeus wasn't even the big bad of that campaign. This was all the result of us players derailing the story. The intended big bad, and the one who actually acted as the final boss, was Leviatar, who was actually also originally from the Finnish pantheon. Garrett eventually became a demigod and the right hand of Ukko, his patron god and the leader of the Finnish pantheon from real life, so feel free to use him in your games. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, making sure to catch up after the stories. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and ring that bell so you can be notified whenever we go live or upload a new vid. Make sure to also follow us on Twitter and Twitch, and to join the subreddit r/MrRipper, where you too can upload your stories for us to read. Using a help action, you can always check out your friendly neighborhood narrator, me, Brian Von VA, over on YouTube where I stream games and make voice acting vids. As always, I try to leave things on a positive here. Today, I just wanted to leave you with this sentiment from dear old Bob Ross. There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. Simply put, always try to see the silver lining to every cloud and situation. Someone got man booted from your group. Hey, that slot just became available for someone nicer and more worthy, perhaps a new friend. DM gives you a joke item that causes pure hilarity and chaos. Everyone gets to smile from that, so that's always a good thing. So take it from me. Have more happy accidents out there. See the silver lining in the world. All the love. We will see you next time. Bye for now.